In this video, we're going to learn how to use source effect bus sends. These are really useful for sending portions of a sound to other places in the map, either with or without effects being applied. In the main village square, there's a public address system, where daily announcements are made and instructive stories are read. In the PA with delays blueprint here, you can see that this is playing back the PA story sound wave, which has the PA attenuation settings applied to it. So let's have a listen to how that sounds. I'm going to go over here and going to pull this handle to start the system.
The story is called The Bulls and the Lion. Is everybody sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
The first thing we can do to make this a bit more interesting is to add a source effect to that sound. So let's go to our source effects and chains folder and we'll create a source effect preset chain. We're going to call it PA origin effect chain. Now we're going to create a source effect preset to add to that chain. So sounds, effects, source effect preset. We're going to use the simple delay type and we're going to call it PA origin delay. Edit the source effect preset chain and add that effect to it. Let's edit that effect. Now with a simple delay, you can manually set the delay amount here, or you can set the delay to be based on the listener's distance from the sound source. This uses the speed of sound settings to determine what the delay will be. So by default that's on, so we'll leave that on. We'll add a little bit of feedback here. So all that remains to do is to go back to that sound, PA audio, edit the sound wave, and scroll down to the effects. And we're just going to apply that source effect chain to that sound. Notice also while we're here that this sound is assigned to the sound class PA Village, and I've set up a little shortcut key in the level blueprint that enables me to push a sound mix so we can solo that.
Today's story is called The Bulls and the Lion.
When we're right up against the sound, we're not really hearing those delays. As we get further away,
a lion had been watching 3 bulls feeding in an open field. He had tried to attack them.
The distance
but they kept together.
Is affecting that delay time.
The bulls and the lion.
So that creates quite a nice effect. However, in an open space like this, you'll often get some additional echoes from this kind of public address system. As the sound hits any reflective surfaces, so for example in this case the buildings around the town square, the sound will bounce off of these and back towards the listener. We can imitate this effect using pre-effect bus sends. What we're going to do is send a copy of the sound to some source buses in the level. Now a source bus is much like an ambient sound actor, except that it does not have a sound of its own. Instead it provides us with a way to broadcast the sound to multiple places at once. So let's go to our source buses folder and create a new source bus. We'll call it PA source bus 1. And we'll drop it into the level just in front of the blacksmith shop here. I'm going to apply the same attenuation setting that I used for that origin sound, the PA attenuations, because that's got a nice cone shape to it. We'll just move that round here. If we're dealing with a sound that's being reflected back off that building, you'd only expect to hear it in front of the building rather than the rear. So the cone is the most appropriate shape to use. And while I'm here, I'm also going to add it to the sound class PA Village. So I now need to go to my sound and send it to that source bus. Now the delayed version works well for the sound coming from the original PA speaker, but the version we send to these source buses should be the original version, clean of any effects. So we're going to use the pre-effect bus sends. This sends the bus the signal as it is pre-effect, i.e. before any effects have been applied to it. So we'll add an element there, expand that, and we'll choose our first PA source bus. Now there's a few different methods for controlling the amount of signal sent to a source bus. We can use the manual send level that just sends the fixed amount as specified here, or we could send a linear amount that varies over distance between the min and max send level settings. Or thirdly, we could create our own custom curve to govern how the send level varies over distance. We'll be looking at these latter options a bit more when we discuss the submix sends in a later video. But for the moment, I'm just going to send a fixed amount of the PA story signal to the source bus. And I'm going to set that amount to 0.1. So let's hear that effect. Again, I'm going to solo the sounds.
Today's story is called The Bulls and the Lion. Is everybody sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
So now some of that PA story sound is being sent to this source bus over here. And I want to create a delay effect on this sound to reflect its distance away from the PA speaker. So with that source bus selected, I'm going to go here and create a new source effect preset chain. And I'm going to put it in the same place, our source effect and chains folder. And this time we're going to call it PA source bus 01 effect chain. Now we'll edit that and we'll add an effect preset to that. So we're going to create a source effect preset. Again, put it in the same folder. And we'll call this PA source bus 1 main delay. And again, we'll use the simple delay preset. Opening that up. So this time I'm not going to use this delay based on distance. I'm going to use the fixed amount. And I'm going to set it to 0.3 to reflect the closeness of that to that origin sound source. Now I can just check that's working if we go back here to the sound and we say output to bus only. So now we won't hear the original version that's coming from the tannoy, we'll just hear the version that's coming through this bus. So again, I'll solo that.
Today's story is called The Bulls and the Lion.
So that's a slightly delayed version of the version that's coming from the tannoy. I'm now going to create 3 additional source buses. And again, send the PA story signal to each of those. I'm going to put one by the windmill, and one by the fisherman's cottage, and one by the tavern. So let's make them. I'm going to use Control and W to duplicate each time. So my source bus 2 is going to go here by the windmill. And source bus 3, fisherman's cottage. And 4 by the tavern. These are like the reflective surfaces that will give us a bit of a slapback echo from that PA speaker. I'll just select those and set them to that sound class again and apply those attenuation settings. Now, with the cone attenuation, you need to adjust each one to make sure that it's facing the right direction. So here's my fisherman's cottage. That needs to be rotated like that. And the windmill like that, and let's just bring it up a little bit as well. And finally the tavern. Now because these are different distances from this sound source, I'm going to need a slightly different delay for each. So I'm going to need to go back to my folder and create a preset chain for each one and a source effect preset delay for each one as well. So there we are. Now my blacksmith's had a delay of 0.3. So for this windmill, which is source bus 2, I'm going to change that to 0.6 because it's a bit further away. Similarly, the fisherman's cottage here is about the same distance, so I'm going to have a 0.6 delay on that as well. And finally for the tavern, it's a bit further away, so we'll change that to 0.8. Now we just need to assign those effects chains to each of these source buses. So this is source bus 2. We're going to assign effect preset chain 2. And effect preset chain 3 goes here. And finally for the tavern, you guessed it, effect preset chain 4. And let's just tweak that a little bit while we're there. Going back to our sound, I'm just going to remember to turn that off. So now we should be hearing the origin sound, and then we're sending some to bus 1, and then we need to send some here to bus 2. We'll send the same amount, 0.1. And bus 3. And last but not least, bus 4. So let's have a listen. I'm going to solo them again. Start that origin sound.
Called The Bulls and the Lion. Is everybody sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
So now we've got that origin sound with its own delay-based system over distance, and then a fixed delay to account for these reflections off of the buildings around the town square.
The lion had little hope of eating them, for he was no match for 3 strong bulls with their sharp horns and hooves.
So that's quite a nice effect already, and if we wanted to get really psychedelic, then we could actually add a further distance-based delay to each source bus as well. Since I'm going to use the same settings for each, I'm just going to duplicate this, and I'm going to call it distance delay. On that distance-based delay, I've just set some kind of unrealistic settings like speed of sound 150 and quite a lot of feedback just to get an over-exaggerated effect. Then add it to each of my source bus effect chains. So let's hear that in context.
Today's story is called The Bulls and the Lion. Is everybody sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin. A lion had been watching 3 bulls feeding in an open field. He had tried to attack them several times, but they kept together and helped each other to drive him off. The lion had little hope of eating them, for he was no match for 3 strong bulls with their
And if you want to hear how the story ends, you'll have to download and play the demonstration project. In this video, we've learnt about source effect bus sends and the potential for varying the bus send levels over distance. These methods offer a great toolkit for the creative use of effects.